Alright, welcome back everyone. This is video number 205 on my mini-series on all the divorces that's happened in my family. So let's talk about some circus clowns in my family, okay? How about starting with my stepmom? I want to make something clear at the start of this video. My stepmom, she's a dirty, skanky, skank. Yes, I said that, okay? 100%. And I'm not even making that up. She also grew up in the same subdivision as me. So a tiny subdivision of 30,000 people. Everybody knew everybody. She was the town's doorknob. Everybody gets a turn. And everybody knew that. She had a reputation. This is what happens when you grow up without fathers. So I know at the very least she has one sister or maybe a half sister. I'm not even sure. My family is extremely complicated. She also has 5 other female cousins. It's very interesting on her family side. Everybody that came out of her generation was all female. They were lucky that they were all born before China's one-child policy, or else half of them could have all been aborted before they were born. So, okay, let's talk about something crazy. So, my stepmom's a sister or half-sister, so the one that brought me to Canada. So, when she first came to Canada, she was married to her Chinese husband. They also had one daughter, and we all hopped onto the flight, and we all came to Canada together back in spring of 2005. So, within literally 3 months of arriving in Canada, she had an affair with this Korean guy who was the owner of this gas station. And many years later, I would end up working at this gas station. By the way, this Korean guy, he's long retired now, so he must be 66 or 67 now. This was many years ago. This was back in 2005. And at the time, this Korean guy, the owner of the gas station, he was also married. He had a wife that was Korean. She had an English name. How ironic. I still remember her English name was Grace. So apparently what I was told was that one day my stepmom's sister, she was just at the gas station pumping some gas, and the Korean owner just came out and he basically rizzed her up. He said, oh, I'm the owner of this gas station. And he even told her that, I'm actually married, but he wants to just have a lot of fun and have an affair with her. So literally within a couple of days later, they went to a steakhouse, and afterwards they even booked a hotel room, and they did that multiple times. But here's the crazy part, okay? So this Korean guy, the owner of the gas station, his wife was highly suspicious of what was happening. So she hired a private Korean investigator to follow him around. So this guy, the private investigator, he has a bunch of those equipments and hidden cameras. So he actually caught everything. He has a video and photo footage. He even has footages of this Korean guy, along with my stepmom's sister, going into the hotel room, everything, the whole entire process. And so his wife, Grace, she will end up filing for divorce, and I believe that she filed for some kind of lawsuit. So, and because of this, the Korean guy and my stepmom's sister, I believe that they lost something like $200,000 Canadian, which is roughly $150,000 US. Keep in mind, this was back in 2005. This is how crazy my family is. But wait, there's more plot twist. So what the hell happened to, my stepmom's sister's husband? Well, obviously, when the affair happened, when he found out, their marriage fell apart. So they got divorced in Canada. And right after they got divorced, my stepmom's sister's ex-husband, he knocked up some random Chinese woman in Toronto, and they had another daughter. And then he disappeared, I think, for anywhere between 5 to 8 years. Nobody knew where the hell this guy was. So this Chinese woman in Toronto that was knocked up by my stepmom's sister's ex-husband. He was sending death threats to my stepmom's sister and my stepmom every single day, threatening them for death, threatening them that if they don't pay child support for her daughter, she will show up to their house with a gun and murder everybody. And not just that, you want to know something that's more crazy. So my stepmom, her half-sister or full sister, and the 5 other female cousins, every single one of them is divorced. Okay, and some of them 2-3 times. You know what? At this point, I honestly do believe in witchcraft and curses, because it's just not possible. Even in the modern society with the insane divorce rates, okay? How is it possible all of this can happen to, members of my family? Literally every single member is freaking divorced. So one of her cousins will also come to Canada many years later. She came to Canada, I think, in 2012. And I got to meet 2 of her other cousins in China. And I realized something, okay? All 7 of these women, every single one of them, it's batshit crazy, okay? That's why all of them are divorced. And remember I said earlier in the video, it's so important to grow up with a father figure, right? So all 7 of these women, they all grew up without fathers. You guys want to know what happened? So my stepmom's father, back in 1969. This is during the height of China's Cultural Revolution. He was actually some kind of a high-ranking CCP official. Unfortunately, he was deemed to be part of the black class. Okay, I will explain more on this concept in later videos when I talk about the Soviet Union. Okay, when I talk about the Bolsheviks. So back during the Cultural Revolution, okay, here's something crazy. Do you know what they taught back in these Chinese classrooms at Chinese universities? They were teaching identity politics, okay? So anybody that was a hardcore believer of Bolshevism, of Vladimir Lenin, of Karl Marx, of Frederick Engels, okay, of Maoist ideology, these were the supreme beings, okay? These were the red class. Anybody else that was a non-believer was considered a bourgeois or a black class, okay? And people in the black class were considered to be subhumans. And any kind of form of torture, rape, or murder that was done to the black class was 100% justified, that there's identity politics. This is how scary it is. So my stepmom's father, he was sacked from his position, and the Red Guards actually forced him onto a rooftop, and he was forced to commit suicide. So that's at least two members of my family that has jumped off from the rooftop of a building. I also want to tell you guys something crazy, okay? The Red Guards, you guys think what? They're violent criminals. You guys think what? They're drug addicts, they're raging alcoholics, they're murderers, they're rapists. All of the Red Guards came from Chinese universities, okay? So back in 1966, China actually defunded the police. How scary is that? Does that sound anything similar? And so the police were replaced by the Red Guards. Okay, these Red Guards, they were all university students. And while they were studying in Chinese university classrooms, okay, they were all indoctrinated with woke, socialist, Marxist ideologies. They were taught that anybody that was a non-believer was a black class and that they must be destroyed. So all of these ruthless murderers, every single one of these millions of Red Guards, they were actually the brightest minds in China at the time. They were all doctors, they were all lawyers, they were all engineers, but unfortunately every single one of them had been indoctrinated. It's starting to sound quite eerily similar to what is happening to the Western civilization in 2024. And because of this, and then obviously my stepmom, her sister, and 5 other female cousins, every single one of them grew up without a father figure. So they all turned out to be a batshit crazy. And here's another point I'm making. The fact that, men have to be the breadwinner. Men have to be more educated. Men have to be more successful. And men have to be on a much higher socio and economic status versus women. So out of my stepmom's cousins, the most successful one, she's a high school principal in China. She's some kind of a big shot. I was told that she has a $5,000 toilet. Okay, $5,000 toilet. It's one of those bidets, the one that shoots hot water up your ass, but it's so advanced. It has all these different settings. You can adjust the temperature of the water. You can adjust the water pressure, the position. There's also different patterns how the water shoots out, and there even has a air dryer. So that's a kind of lifestyle that she's living. I heard from my cousin, when she goes back to China to visit her super rich aunt, and obviously she's divorced as well. And when they go to shopping malls, and she will ask the store employees, she'll say, oh, how much is this dress, right? The employee will tell her, oh, this is $100. And you know what her reaction will be? She'll say, oh my God, $100. That is disgusting. How can this thing be so cheap and filthy? This is for poor peasants to wear. I could never, ever let something that cheap touch me. Okay, I only buy dresses that's $1,000. I only wear boots that's $2,000. I only want perfumes that's $5,000. That's actually how she talks to people. That's how she looks down on poor people. This is the issue, When women get extremely wealthy and successful, they start to shame all the other men and women. You will never, ever hear a man say that. Ladies, when have you ever heard a guy say that? Oh my God, I don't date these women who are uneducated. I don't date women who are bums. I don't date women who work at Trader Joe's making $25,000 a year. I won't date women who work at Burger King's, okay? It's only women who say these kind of things. And this is also a huge problem. Like I mentioned, part of the reason why China's birth rate is so low, because a record number of women are becoming extremely successful. And when they're outpacing men, there's less relationships, there's less family formation, and you have the collapsing birth rate, and you have the collapse of a society. Okay? I know it sounds harsh, but it's the 100% truth. When women achieve a certain level of a socio and economic status, when she becomes the top tier woman, okay, she will inevitably die alone. throne because she will look down on 99% of men. And obviously, I mentioned before, I had a cousin, so he was ended up being a manager at a nightclub, at a karaoke bar. Obviously, that's where you meet tons of bad people. And he's done so many shady businesses. I can't say all of them because I don't want anybody to get in trouble, but he's done a lot of terrible things. He's done a lot of illegal stuff. But the diarrhea really hit the air conditioner for my cousin, so they got into a gang fight. I guess it was another rival karaoke bar, some nightclub, and they also had some kind of gang connections. So one night, I think it was probably at 2 or 3 in the morning, okay, there was a huge fight that broke out in the middle of their street, and he has this massive machete. I've personally seen it, my cousin's machete. It's gotta be at least, 2.5 to 3 feet long. It scares the shit out of me, the fact that, he actually carries that thing around. So he ended up using that machete that one night. He stabbed multiple people that night. And it was because of this, obviously he was locked up in prison. The only way to bail him out was that, my uncle and my aunt, they had to spend their entire lifetime of savings. And they even had to sell their home. They had to take out the credit cards and line of credit. And I don't know how much money they spent. Basically, it was a fortune just to bail him out of jail. And I also mentioned before, obviously, I had another uncle. He disappeared for 8 years. Everybody thought he was dead. But many years later, and he was found in southern China. He finally revealed to my grandmother and my mom that he had been locked up for all these years. The charges is unclear. Because in China, if you're charged with drug trafficking, okay, you get a bullet to the back of the head. That's it. So I'm not sure what the hell happened to him. But it was something serious. It was something extreme. He was smuggling something into Southeast Asia, into Burma, into Laos, into Myanmar, into Cambodia. Some extremely shady business. He also had a massive gambling issue growing up as well. And I do remember back in the 1990s, he would often steal my grandmother's and my mother's credit cards and their bank cards. And my mom and my grandmother, they often had their savings completely drained out due to his gambling. And also because of his gambling habits, he was taking out loans from loan sharks, and many of these loans he couldn't pay back. He had to default, and I still remember it was traumatizing growing up when I was raised by my grandmother. These loan sharks, they would literally show up to our front doors with knives, with bats, with axes, and they would threaten basically to murder every single one of my family member, and if the loan wasn't paid back. I have to really give all the props to my grandmother. She really, really held her ground. If it wasn't for her standing firmly on her ground, I think every single member of my family could have been murdered. This crazy uncle that I have, he got divorced with my auntie-in-law. And my auntie-in-law, I think she divorced something like 4 times. I'm not sure exactly, but she's one crazy asshole as well. So unfortunately, because of her parents are so crazy, this is the cousin I mentioned in the previous video, who was 4 years younger than me. So she was abandoned by both of her parents. So I actually grew up with this cousin. We spent many years together. No, the conditions were rough. It was just my grandmother, and it was me and my cousin. We were extremely poor. We didn't have much. No, my uncle and my mom, they barely gave my grandmother any money. She had to basically drain all of her pension just to keep the two of us alive. And my cousin, she had so much talent. It was unbelievable, everything that went to waste because her parents abandoned her. Because one year she actually entered a drawing competition in the city, in my hometown, and she actually came second place overall. I'm not sure how much she won for prize money. Not the second place in the junior division, second place out of everybody. There was tens and thousands of people that entered the competition. I've personally seen her hand drawings. And some of the drawings that she did was, for example, it could be Sailor Moon, or Doraemon, or Pikachu, or a pirate Luffy, or a Naruto, or Sasuke Sakura. And the drawings she made from these Japanese mangas were completely next level. I was completely blown away. I thought, if she had the chance, to get noticed, if her parents actually were able to send her to art school, and she could become extremely wealthy, and she could make millions from her talent. But unfortunately, everything went to waste. This is why having a nuclear family is extremely important. And obviously, there's so much more to go on. I don't want to make this video too long. I know my video on Friday was already 34 minutes. I wish there was a television crew that followed my family. My family could make the most insane reality TV show there ever was, okay? Keeping Up with the Kardashians will be nothing compared to my family. But, I want to get the main message out, right? This is what's extremely important, right? You see all of these divorces and you see all of these abortions, and this is the consequences. All of these things that have happened in my family, I'll have one single common denominator, and that is single mother homes, okay? The absence of a father figure. That's why it's so important. This is what happens when you commit a sin. Okay, this is what happens when you're constantly breaking your marriage vows, okay? And perhaps this is the God's way of punishing you. If we get rid of single mother homes worldwide, I can guarantee you this, 80 to 90% of all of the world's problems overnight will completely disappear.